When I was a kid entering into my teenage years, I started to begin experiencing difficulties controlling my emotions and behaviors. I always had aggression, and I remember when I was younger that, well, not when I was younger, but like at about 12 years old, my mom and I used to always get into fights, and I was always trying to, delegate what went on around the house. I remember her ex common law at the time would always become physical with me and put his hands on me. And there was this one time where I remember just grabbing him by like the scruffs of his shirt, and I just like threw him down the stairs, and then I pushed him into the table, and he slipped and like bashed his head on the back of the table. And at that point, my aggression got really severe, and it began having an impact on my uh, relationship with not only my mother, but my siblings and her ex common law at the time. And so I experienced some, um, like, well, not like some physical abuse, but it's like not severe or anything. And I shouldn't really say that having someone put your hands on you isn't severe, but I always just remember, always picking fights, and that led to myself being placed in uh, a psych ward for evaluation because my mother was struggling and she couldn't help me to the point where she could provide what I needed. So a month into living in the mental health ward, I was up and down with my moods, and my behaviors were still erratic, and I still had anger outbursts. So I was then placed into group care living in the ministry, and I was constantly always battling the staff there. And I just remember all the time, well, actually, I remember when my mom left, I have emotional attachment issues. And so I remember her signing the papers to have me placed into the group home and finalizing all the work. And I just remember standing at the door, holding her hand, crying, saying, "Don't go, I'm so sorry. I'll be good." You know, and, you know, that reminds me of the treaties, and I see the relation, uh, when I reflect back on that now, actually, it's interesting. I look at that. And it reminds me of how when treaties, they implemented residential schools, and you would always remember the children being picked up by these European descendants and ripped apart from the arms of their loving parents or family members, their cookums and mushums. And so I guess when I reflect, it really reminds me of like almost how subtle the government's attempts are to assimilate the indigenous people still today in a more fashionable manner. Still, it's not okay in my personal viewpoint. But I can tell you, when I was in there, I was a very feisty child, and I had anger management issues. So I ended up going to anger management and placed on medication. And I was always being in physical interventions with the staff, and they always were having to escort or restrain me. So because I became violent, you know. I'm 18 years old, and at 12 years old, that was the Tyrell back then. And now I have no problem with controlling my state of emotions and my state of mind a lot of the times. And the only aggressive side of me that anyone will ever see, because I've come so far in terms of physical, development and partial of the cognitive development and socio-emotional, is that I actually can control my temper and can control my reactions a lot better, and you'll only hear me be verbally aggressive I'm not saying that that's good. I'm just still working on that because it's something I need to work on. But I have not been physical with anyone at all because I'm able to keep myself contained, luckily. Um, when I was younger, I used to, like cognitively, I've always been intelligent, I'm on the autism spectrum with Asperger's syndrome. And, I've always been intelligent. I have the capacity to read people's emotions, read people's energy, and read the room. I struggle with Q signs though, but I'm able to read the room and, know when someone's not okay or when someone's okay. So that's something that I'm easily good at. Socio-emotional, I was never a shy person. I know like the First Nations people, they like to always be welcoming to everyone who was around them, and that the intent of, you know, mutual sharing was they would share their stories, they would share their ways of living, they would share what they have with everyone, everyone got things. And for me, I was able to provide the capacity to enjoy getting to know everyone. And I'm a people person, eh? I love getting to know one another. I love talking to friends, family, whenever I can. But thanks to this pandemic, I've been so withdrawn from the world that it seems like I'm lonely and, I'm disorientated, and I have been, pulled away for so long that it's like the world is foreign to me. I've forgotten so much of how that works, right? But I still have the ability to socio-emotionally develop, those skills to connect with people in the world. And that's what the First Nations people did, no matter how hard the descendants of different races or ethnicities tried to suppress and take away the culture, they still fought and worked with the Europeans to come together and say, hey, you know what? We need to focus on building relationships, and be familial with one another, and have those good relationships where we can lean back on one another. And, that's what I do, essentially, is I take what I have for skills and I do that with the people who are there for me. So yeah, it truly is, amazing to know that I've grown so much. And 6 years ago, to when I was just entering the teenage years, I wouldn't be anywhere as near as close to being able to say, hey, this is where I'm at, and this is what I understand about my cognitive, my socio-emotional, my physical, aspects of the development throughout my years of childhood and entering into adolescence. Cognitively, if I were to ever make a mistake, like back in the day, let's say if you were known for having not the greatest, mindset, and that you weren't smart, you could get away with things. But, if you were intelligent and you knew how to do things, you don't get away with it. That's like me, I am cognitively developed to the point where the expectations are very high, and, the morals of life and the, intent behind the treaties back then too, right, were always well respected. And I think as a person, an individual who is accepted for being able to have a mature aspect on life, and a grasp on reality like some others can't, I think it really has set me up for success. Just like how the treaties have set the First Nations people and the entire universe up for success by being able to maturely get along despite our differences and all that. So some of the stories, like, I won't go, it's 10 minutes now. It's 10 minutes. And, my phone's at 15%, unfortunately. But the development and growth for my socio-emotional, physical, and cognitive aspects are remarkably interchangeable with every other thing in this world. And I think that I wouldn't be where I am today. My beliefs on how, like, I've heard so many different ways of living, and I've heard many other people try to tell their ways of how they want people to live life. I've always lived life the way I do it. I see things in a color. I listen to what people have to say, but I live life by being myself and doing what I believe in, regardless of what I've heard from others. And let me tell you, some of the things are inexplicit, disturbing, crazy, right out stupid, completely psychotic, the most dumbest things I've ever heard, retarded, mind my language, and I forgive you for using the R word. And I question about our world and what the future brings, and I'm concerned. However, I'm only one person, and I can only do so much. The rest is on the world. So the people in my life that I come across down the path of living, it's in both theirs and my control to decide how we go about life. Agree to disagree. I've grown so much with the people who I've met. And this is my reflective inquiry into adolescence. Thank you.